Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tell Your Story, the series where I seek to find different people who have inspired me with great stories about their own personal triumphs, struggles, parts of their life, as well as the lives that they interact with. We are on episode 8 today, and I'm thrilled to have my friend Lynn Colon on. Lynn, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
So for those people who don't know who you are, Lynn, give us a little brief background over what you do in your life.
Okay, so again, I'm Lynn Colon. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I'm on my fourth year as a principal. I'll be a principal until June 29th. Effective July 1st, I will be serving as the director of EL programs and services for our school division. Prior to that, I was an assistant principal. I was a teacher in Texas, and then a social worker as well. Came here when I was 19. My husband served in the U.S. Army, so he brought us here, and it's been a ride. I mean, I'm leaving in dream, hard work, but just living it. I'm super excited about all the opportunities that I've had. To tell you a little bit about the school that I currently serve, we're very diverse. We have kids from all different countries. I call it Disney because the lines are long and they come back every single day. We have kids from all over, different socioeconomics, different walks of life. But I think that's the beauty of the work that I do because I look like them, they look like me, and when we're having conversations, we're just learning about the different places we've been and the different cultures.
Awesome. Well, Lynn, I've known you for a few years now, and we've had quite a few conversations about a variety of things. But I love your story, your personal story of growing up, immigrating to the United States, and then your journey. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are today?
Sure. So, my schooling was very different from what our kids are experiencing here in the United States. There's a lot of poverty where I'm from. There's no such thing as you get to pick your lunch because everyone is on free and reduced lunch, and everyone wears uniforms because people don't have money to buy the nice. So was a teacher. My grandmother was a school custodian. And so, we value education back home. And I knew that I wanted to do great things, but I didn't a lot of access. So when I was in ninth grade, I was 10 because they don't have gifted programs in Puerto Rico. So if you advance, what they do is they skip you, which is unfortunate because you can only imagine being in 10th grade and being in ninth grade and being 10.
Yeah.
Socially, I don't think that is what's best for kids. But anyways, my mom said, well, let's send you with your aunt to actually Virginia to see if you can get a better education there. And when I got here, Todd, I took a placement exam and they said she's got to be retained. She
Wow.
doesn't speak the language. And I was heartbroken. And I joke now about it because I said that mentally I would tell them, I promise you in English, in Spanish, I'm really, really smart. I know what I'm talking about. But how crushing it is that you're excited about living the American dream and they're saying, well, you don't fit here. We don't have anything for you. So I went back, and then my senior year, I was 15, and I had the privilege of coming to Washington, D.C. as part of the National Honor Society program. And I remember standing at the Capitol steps, and I told the girl next to me, and I get emotional every time I talk about this. I said, I'm going to live here one day. I am going to live here one day. And she looked at me and she said, well, you do realize that you need to speak English first. And I interviewed for this position recently, and I wish we had been friends on Facebook and I could have taken a selfie of the panel and say, "Hello, Luca's interviewing to be a director," because years ago. Uh, Yeah, she told me that, so she didn't believe that, and to be able to do this work now and inspire kids who think that great things don't happen to people like them, it's an honor.
Right.
And I take it so seriously because the dream is not only coming here and have an address here, is to be able to work and contribute and take part of all the great things that this country has to offer. So it's not been easy. I came here when I was 19, and my husband had gone. He was in some training in California, and when he came back, I was going to school, and he came. Where's Lynn? Well, she's in school. She enrolled in school. What? My wife? Yeah. So that's when he learned who was he married to. I was not gonna sit and watch the novelas at home, but it's just that drive and just wanting to do more and contribute. And now my work has been just inspiring kids, do better and enjoy everything that this country has to offer.
So, Lynn, you talk about how when you came to the United States, whether it was the first time or the second time, you didn't know English. And so, tell me a little bit about I grew up in Texas my entire life, and I've always spoken English, and I've been around people who speak Spanish. My wife is bilingual, and my whole that side of the family is Spanish speaking. But I don't know what it's like to enter a place to live where I don't speak the language. So for our listeners who may not know what that's like either, can you kind of describe what that experience was like for you?
Well, it's interesting because they teach an English class in Puerto Rico, but you're taught to survive, like what's your name, what your basic numbers. But here everything is so fast, and that I always tell people, I dream in Spanish, I get upset in Spanish. So with that whole process is so complex because you're trying to translate what other people are saying. So you can imagine when you have no idea what they're saying and you're just like, okay, let me draw from my bank of what I learned or watch on TV and see if I can make sense of this. And so, it was hard, but I don't even I don't even know how to explain it.
Well, I spent a few weeks in Venezuela one
And,
summer, and I remember, I didn't speak Spanish at that time. I mean, I knew phrases like "Where's the bathroom?" stuff like that, really basic stuff.
well, you had an
But
advantage.
yeah. Well, the first week I was like, well, this isn't that big of a deal. I can know a couple phrases here or there, whatever. But week two and then week three of being in Venezuela and having nobody to talk to, it was very like claustrophobic feeling.
Hmm.
Like I need somebody to understand me. Please, somebody hear what I'm trying to say. So I can imagine as a child coming to a school environment and like you said where they put you down a grade level because they said well she doesn't speak English so she can't be in these classes and how that must feel and it just gives me I'm constantly trying to learn about things like that because a huge portion of my population with my students are Spanish speakers and I even have some who come straight from China and speak no English and so it's always so interesting to me of what that would be like as a kid to be in that environment and not know the language.
Well, and you know what is really interesting? I remember with my sister and my neighbors, we would speak, I call it gibberish, pretending that, we were speaking English because we wanted so bad because we were growing up just wanting and desiring that American dream. And we're just like, and okay, what are we doing here? Um, but yeah, I tell people when you go to the nail salon, and I have my nail girl, she's from Vietnam, and they're talking, and I appreciate that and value that because I know that that's how it feels when I speak Spanish with someone else, but you have no clue what they're saying.
Right.
That's exactly, how I tell people, it feels. You want to be part of the conversation, but you can't because you don't know what others are saying.
Well, you talked about this earlier, but the school you work at actually has kids that come from all over the world. And there's all kinds of languages and backgrounds and religions and everything like that. How do you use your own experiences to connect with those families?
Oh, I love it. That's one of the favorite things, my favorite things about this school, and I think that makes it very unique. I will tell you, I worked at a school previously where the majority of the students were Hispanic, so it came naturally and it was easy because I could communicate with them. But at the school that I am right now, there's a variety of languages, so I had to be sensitive and share my story and also allow them to share their story with me because the way they discipline their students is different. I have parents who were lawyers or doctors in their countries, but they're doing a different type of work here because their licenses don't transfer to the United States, so they might come across as, I don't have time because I'm cleaning houses. But when you talk to them, they're highly intelligent, and it's just amazing. So I've been able to tap into their knowledge and their experiences to help our school become better. But you have to be very culturally, sensitive. That's a must when you're at our school and talking to the kids. I mean, they've had opportunities to travel. It's something as interesting as when they leave for 2 weeks or more because it costs so much to visit their countries that they're going to stay for long periods of times, and we have to be understanding of that. But I just love it. I think it's more than the cultural night that some schools have once a year. This is something that's ongoing, and we're constantly talking about it, and I'm learning more and more and more. So I'm very appreciative that they have opened themselves to the conversation, and I've learned so much from them.
I think that's such a cool thing too, to be able to, like you said, learn from those families because a lot of those cultures and things you wouldn't get to experience otherwise necessarily. And so you have such a unique opportunity to amplify and celebrate what they bring to the table and really build them up. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. I know that
Mhm.
you're from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And so, there was a huge, all that devastation recently with the hurricane. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to watch an area that you're from and to see these images and not be able to rush back right away to help?
Uh, you know, so all my family lives there. We are the only ones here. And I had my mom for a little bit and I had my in-laws for a little bit. And I will tell you, it was it was so difficult because for a couple of days I didn't know how they were doing. And in talking to my mom, uh, she says the trauma is so huge because my family didn't have a lot to begin with. So the little bit that they had, they lost. And these students, no schools being shelters. Right now, they're closing over 300 schools, Todd, which is horrible.
Right.
I had a student who came from Puerto Rico, and I mean, he had a great experience at our school, but he couldn't understand why he had to leave, and to try to convince him, hey, this is great and what we have here is amazing. I couldn't because it's not home,
Right.
and they're not interested in the bells and whistles. They're just interested in having shelter and having a place uh, to live. And they're, things are still not good there. They have power on and off, but there's this pride of holding on to what they know is theirs, and staying together that I admire uh, greatly. I told my mom, you can come here anytime. She's like, no, I belong here. I'm gonna see it through, but it's it just hurts me because I know that I have so much here and that our community has so much, and that's not the same over there.
You know, and that's one reason I really wanted to bring that up is because we look at the other hurricanes that hit at the same time, where we got Houston and Florida, and we see how quickly they were able to rebuild, and it looks like nothing ever happened in a lot of those spaces. And sometimes because of that, people can forget that an area that was hit like Puerto Rico, they just think, well, that must have been fixed and everything's better there now too. And the fact of the matter is, like you said, it's not. There's still a lot of devastation, a lot of people without power still to this day, and schools being closed down, and all kinds of things. And so I can't even imagine what it must feel like to have all that family there, and like I said, not be able to go back right away when it happened, to like be part of that. So I think that that really shows strength in you as well, to be able to do that. Lynn, I wanna say, you know, if there is one thing that you have learned to the core of your being, um, since coming to the United States, since coming to the States, since working as a principal with so many cultures, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned?
That's a great question. Um, okay, that no matter where you come from, you can have a seat at the table. You really can, and that's really what I want to do. Empower kids that no matter where you come from or what language you speak, your voice matters. Uh, it's my story. I'm living things that I would have never thought of. I this is a joke, but I have a friend. She was an assistant when I was in a kindergarten classroom, and she has seen me evolve with the language. And now that I'm a principal, she said, "Do you remember when you said margarine instead of margarine?" But those things, right? And surrounding myself with people who understand that, okay, I'm gonna lose my English in a minute, but staying true to myself and just empowering, uh, those that are going through the same thing. But I want kids to know it just doesn't matter. You can do it. You can do it. For many years, I thought that great things didn't happen to people like me because of where I came from. But I'm starting to learn that that's not necessarily the truth. I've had great opportunities, experience, and people around me that just make me better. And they correct me and love me still. So yeah, that would be the biggest lesson.
That was beautiful and like perfectly worded. Let me tell you. So I want to ask you to do something real quick. So I do have viewers and listeners from all over the world, and a lot of them speak multiple languages. So I'd love if you could give a piece of advice in Spanish to those listeners or viewers who may speak Spanish.
Okay, a piece of advice. Sigan tratando, crean en ustedes en todo momento. Hay oportunidades para todos. Fe, esperanza y no dejen de luchar.
I love it. I love hearing other languages. It's just so exciting to me. And you know, I hear Spanish all the time at my house. I don't speak it very well, but I hear it all the time at my house. And so I love getting to celebrate that little moment. And you know, you said something here in the interview that I remember you've said before in our conversation that I'm totally fascinated by. And that you said, you know, even though you speak English all day long, you still dream in Spanish.
I do. I do.
And I love that because you know, being a someone who only speaks one language, I mean, I've always only spoken and dreamed in one language, and so it's fascinating to me to know that you speak all day in English at work and things like that, and then you go home and you dream in Spanish.
I do. And I get upset in Spanish. So, my girls will tell you.
And you have two girls, right?
Yes, I have twins.
And are they both bilingual as well?
So, that's one thing that if I could change something. So Danny and Gabby were premature. They struggled with, and that was a very difficult decision. We were in Texas at that time, and we choose God. I was not a therapist in Spanish, so they said, okay, so you have two girls that are not talking. We need to get them going. What are we going to do about it? So we, as parents, we thought, okay, well, I mean, we got to help them talk. So therapy was in English. So they're learning to be bilingual. I consider myself uh, ESL because Spanish is my primary language. That's what I learned. That's what I read first, and then I translate a lot. So I didn't grow up with both languages at the same time, which would have been cool for my girls. But yeah, they have the English accent and I have the Spanish accent, which is it's crazy, but that's just how it worked. But they had to take every elective in Spanish. It was non-negotiable. They knew that every elective they have taken has been Spanish.
That's awesome. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for being my guest on the show
Oh,
and
thank
allowing
you, thank you.
people and just allowing people that glimpse inside that they may not always see. You have such a unique and such a story that I think is powerful for kids to know that I can come from all kinds of places and backgrounds and things. And here's another example of someone who still was able to find success despite what could be considered a mountain of limitations. And so, Lynn, you are an inspiration. You are always such a
Oh,
positive
thank you.
force, always making the magic.
Yes, I'm excited about my shirt.
So thank you for being our guest. If people want to follow you online, Lynn, where can they catch you?
At the Colognes, yes, it has the little, line, but yeah, I'm there. You can type Lynn Colon and you'll find me.
There we go. Well, Lynn, have a great evening and thank you so much again.
Oh, thank you, Todd.